Can you tell, I guess, the audience, a little bit about yourself, your real estate investing? I know you're a big investor. You're also a realtor. Can you dive into that a little bit, how you got started?
So yeah, my name is Chris. I work down here in South Florida area. So I got started, basically, I wanted to buy a house, and I was working with other agents and just looking at houses, and I saw the way the agents working, and I'm like, I feel like I can do a better job than them. So I was young though. I was 23 when I bought my first house, and then after that I bought two houses when I wasn't an agent. I was just just working. And then after those two houses, I was like, all right, I could do this. So I became a realtor. I got my license, and then I just kept buying. That was basically it. I was working in retail before this, and I just dove into real estate full time.
That's awesome. So a lot of people I think want to get into real estate, but they don't have the money to, or they don't know how, right? So like when you were working retail, were there any specific things or any advice you could give on saving for that first property? Because I feel like that's everybody's hurdle.
So saving is definitely, it was a hurdle for me as well. I was just every paycheck literally living off of like nothing. Like I would say 80% of my paycheck. Okay. I was spending 20% on just living, food. I was living with my parents though, so I didn't have that much like overhead. It was just like gas and that's pretty much it. Like,
so you had no housing payment?
I had no housing payment. Like my biggest expense was gas because I was always driving around everywhere. So yeah, it took long. It took years to save. And then when I bought my first property, I had a truck that I put a bunch of money into it. Had rims and audio systems, subwoofers. Like it was a badass truck. But I was like, that's it. Like I'm over it. Like I feel like that was the goal for like when you're in high school. You want to have like a nice car. But once you graduate, you're like, all right, I don't need this. So that was another thing. Like so there's a saving. I sold my truck, which is my baby, and then that's how I had the down payment.
Sure.
To buy my first property.
Okay. So you were 23 when you bought your first property. When did you buy your second property?
So my goal was to buy a property every year.
Okay.
And 2016 is when I first bought, and I pretty much bought a property every year except for 2018. But 2019 I bought two to catch up.
Okay.
And then just multifamily or even single family that cash flows.
Sure.
That's what I was looking for. I was looking for a cash flow when I was working in retail, I was making like 25 grand a year. I wasn't making hardly anything.
But you were still able to buy.
I was still able to buy. I had a cosigner as well for my first property. So that helps. If you don't have it, just get the down payment, but you might need a cosigner, especially in Miami, the way prices are. You need to be pretty well making income.
Yeah.
To show for the bank.
Was that cosigner a family member or was it okay? Because I think a lot of people struggle. I had a cosigner as well. Like that's how I got started. Like on this property, for example, my mom had to personally guarantee it with me. Like the bank wasn't going to give me that, right? So, like I feel like if you have family in the business, it gives you such a leg up. So I think a lot of people maybe don't have family that way, or that are willing to co-sign, or they don't make enough to co-sign, or whatever. So then it becomes a game of like, okay, they do have the down payment, but then they got to go find an external partner.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that's a situation for a lot of people, and you gotta either find somebody or you gotta just grind it out and get a higher paying job.
Yeah.
If you can't find somebody, some relative, maybe try with a friend or something. Just be careful with how you hold title, but you got to just grind it out and make the money. Show the bank you're making money.
Yeah, trust is so easy when it's a family member, or you know them super well, you've known them for a long time, you know their ethics, all those things. So like sometimes to find that co-signer can take a long time, a year or two to build that relationship. If it's not like a different investor or something along that sort. So it's such an interesting thing, and like I think we're very fortunate to have that essentially in-house with our family. Like that's really nice.
Yeah. I'm definitely fortunate to have my mother co-sign on that. Without that, I wouldn't have even gotten started. It would have taken me so much longer.
Yeah.
I was not making I wasn't making any money, basically.
I think a lot of people, and there's like a lot of real estate gurus, and they sell courses and they sell this and all these crazy things, but a lot of people don't realize, like, yeah, they had family to co-sign as well. Like, that's such a big advantage. So, like,
it is.
Some of these huge people you see, they did take that route. They used family co-signers. Some didn't. Some found outside investors or partners or whatever. So, like, basically where I'm going with this is I think everybody has their own path.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. So you skipped 2018, you bought 2 in 2019.
Yeah.
So then you had 3.
Yeah.
At what, 25?
No, in 2019 I had a 4.
4?
Yeah.
At what, 25 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. Killing it.
Yeah. Or 26-ish.
So when did you first take out like a HELOC or a refinance to go and buy more real estate? Like,
so the first time I refinanced a property was 2020 when rates went, like, you know, the rates were really low at that time. So I refinanced my second property, and my mortgage payment before the refi was like $1,700. I was able to go from like a 4% interest rate, it was like a 4.5, to like a 2.8. And I took out like 60
Free
grand.
money.
Yeah, I took out like 60 grand.
Yeah.
And my payment went from like 1,700 to like 1,800.
yeah, so $100 difference in $60K in your
And
pocket.
60K in
buy
my
another
pocket.
property.
And that's why I was like, all right, here we go. Let's buy the 5th.
Yeah.
And yeah, just it scales. It takes time. I always tell people, like, real estate's not get rich quick. It's get rich for sure.
For sure.
But it takes time. I mean, the time is based on you. How you manage your portfolio and how you grow it, that's, you know, depending on you. But I mean, it's totally doable. So my first goal was just replacing my income from the retail job that I had. I just wanted to I was making like 25 grand. I was like, I need to make 25 grand just off of rental properties.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, then I'll leave this place. Because that was like, I was just covering my expenses. And I just kept my overhead really low, which is like really important to do when you're trying to grow.
Dude, live with that family. Like, stay with your family.
Stay with your family.
Until you can buy a property.
Don't splurge. I mean, just going out in Miami can be very expensive. I mean, you know, like,
bro, drinks $20, then you got a tip, then you're in 30 on the drink.
Yeah,
that's
like
one drink. You drink 5.
I wouldn't go out and spend money. I would save as much money as possible. Which now I spend a little bit more, but I mean, I'm still pretty, I like to keep my overhead as low as possible.
Yeah, I made a YouTube video the other day just ranting about, like, the cost of Miami and all this stuff, because it hits on YouTube for some reason.
Yeah.
And there's this guy from Canada, he's commenting, he's like, oh, I thought Miami was the answer to Canada. And he's like, now I definitely know Miami is not the answer.
Definitely not.
As far as, like, cost of living and all those things, so that was, like, I just thought that was funny. But
I think Miami has, like, the highest cost of living right now.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Like, New York, I think, is more expensive, but their wages are a lot higher.
Sure.
And it's like, Miami is more expensive, and the wages just don't keep up with.
There's not a lot of industry here, I feel. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's coming, which you talk about it all the time. I mean,
it's coming.
Businesses are coming and moving over here.
It's cool that we are in the market and we get to take advantage of that. So, like, what I always tell people is, like, try to get in so you can take advantage of these things. Like, this house, for example, that we're at right now, purchased for 2.2 last year in 2023. If I would have bought it in 2019, I would have paid like $700,000.
Yeah.
So somebody made X amount of dollars, like $1 million plus in a 4-year time frame.
Yeah, that's
so
insane.
I think that we're gonna see that on the back end too. So, like, yeah, everybody, like, knows to get in quick. Well, some people don't, but, like, get in quick, get in fast, limit your expenses, and just
like,
you get so well.
People on the sidelines that are waiting, I'm like, if you're qualified right now, buy it right now. Like, buy something that makes sense for you. Don't overspend. Buy a ridiculously big house. Buy what fits your needs now, and then you could always trade up. So I mean, that's kind of how you did it. You traded.
Trade up.
You trade up.
1031 exchange, tax free.
Yeah. Don't. Everybody wants a huge mansion. Like, you gotta start. And I mean, that's what I mean. If you want a huge mansion and you can do it, go for it. But the average Joe, the average Joe started with a small house and traded up, or instead of selling it, just rent it out. That's another way of building your portfolio. Just keep it and rent it.
So how big is your portfolio right now?
Right now it's 26 doors.
26 doors.
Yeah.
Over how many properties?
It's 9 properties, and then 10 with where I live.
Okay.
So 10 in total.
So 9 investment properties,
investment, yeah.
and then 1 for yourself. And then what's the breakdown of that? How many single family homes do you have?
So it's 4 single family, and the rest are duplexes, triplexes, and I just closed on a 4plex.
Nice. What's your next step after that 4? Because like a lot of people try to get to that 4plex.
Scaling from here now is in Miami. Like one issue I'm dealing with now is the 40-year recertification on the 4plex that I have. So I gotta get that down packed. I gotta finish the 40-year on this property, which is pretty straightforward. I'm just going through it now, so it's my first time. But definitely that's something that I'm gonna have to learn as I scale, because the bigger the property, they're gonna have the 40-year recertification in Miami, which is pretty strict because of the Surfside building collapse and all that, which we can talk about the condos later. That's like a whole other topic. But yeah, I'm trying to get that down packed, learn how to do the 40-year so that I can continue scaling. I mean, small multifamily is like really my niche though. So, I mean, if I see any good deals in small multifamily, I'll probably, pull the trigger on that.
That's amazing.
And keep, I mean, I want to grow, but the small multifamily is like my bread and butter right now. So
hey, if it works, it works.
Yeah. So,
and it's too small for the institutional investors or big money players to take, so it leaves like a big gap, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the mom and pop owners. You can get a really good deal. It's like, I've heard that a lot, is like, that's a very good area to focus. So I think that's...
Yeah, like, because, I mean, you don't got to worry about the 40-year when it's a small duplex like that either.
Do 3 years have 40-year recertifications or just 4plexes?
It has to be, I think it's just 4plexes. You can like look it up, but it says like 10 occupants or more. But like it's kind of like up in the air because like how many occupants are there, or how many, do they base it on rooms?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. I'm still learning about it. But I know if it's over 2,000 square feet and the 10 occupants. So something like that.
So kind of, so that's kind of, that's interesting.
Like on the Miami-Dade website, that's what it says. They need to have less than 10 occupants and less than 2,000 square feet, then you don't have to do it. If it's over 2,000 or has more than 10, then you have to.
Interesting.
So, but it says occupants. It doesn't say units. So that's like...
Yeah, you could have 3 people in a 1-bedroom
exactly.
in Miami. Like
yeah.
that's not
you
that uncommon.
Like 5 people in a 1-bedroom,
yeah,
2-bedroom. Yeah. Like,
so
So it's kind of like up for interpretation.
Yeah.
From my understanding, I mean, I don't know if there's like maybe they count 2 per room, 2 people per room or something.
There's probably like a standardized.
Yeah. So that's what I don't know yet. I started with 5% down, then I moved, and I was able to qualify for more because I was using the first property as a rental.
Which counts that, you can count that income to your
count that income.
purchase
Yeah, you
of
gotta put it on your taxes and just count that income so that you can qualify for more. So it was like I was still working at my retail job, and I was making that income plus the rental income, and then I qualified for a bigger house.
Sure.
And that's usually what the bank wants to see, like that you're upgrading like to a bigger home. So yeah, just upgrade and keep doing that. I mean, you can keep doing that to buy every year, which is what my goal was.
Sure.
To buy a primary.
So one thing that I'm seeing right now, and I think a lot of misconceptions about people purchasing in Miami currently, just with the current state of the market, how much prices have shot up lately. People want a cash flow at 5% down, or like they want to live in the property for 6 months to a year and then rent it out after, and they expect a cash flow.
It's possible, but it's tough. I mean, you're putting nothing down. You're 95% leveraged. So, I mean, there's some deals out there, but you got to get creative. So, one way of getting creative would be in Miami, add an efficiency. A lot of people add like a little separate studio or separate. I mean, I've seen people even like just get a master bedroom and turn it into like another unit. Yeah. So
any way you can do it.
You could do that. I mean, you got to get creative, especially in this market now. Prices are high. Interest rates actually today are pretty good. They
went down quite a bit.
Yeah, they dipped down. So it's a good time to lock in a rate right now if you're currently under contract. But yeah, you got to get creative with deals. One of the deals that I last sold to a client it was a duplex, Antonio's property. You did the loan on that one. So it had a house in the front, a house in the back, 2 houses on one lot, and then it had a little garage. So he turned that garage into a studio, and now it's like the deal makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
But an average investor would be like, oh, it doesn't cash flow well. But like he had to add that. You gotta get creative.
So what I always say is like you make your money in the management and the operations of the property.
Yeah.
Like for the on the cash flow side when you come in that little down. So like I just had a conversation yesterday. The guy's like, hey, I want to do FHA, 3.5 down, but I want a cash flow. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're definitely going to be bleeding for a year or two. And essentially I was like, listen, you got to kick those tenants out that are in there. Probably.
Yeah.
Then you gotta find new tenants, screen them. Like you gotta operationally increase the value of the property and the cash flow. It's not just gonna happen. Like the appreciation is gonna happen, and yes, rents are gonna increase. But over a 1 to 2 to 3 year span, like it's your job, like to operationally increase that.
Yeah.
So, going in, fixing the property, raising rents, getting good tenants in there, adding in efficiency, like doing whatever you can do to make that just.
It has to make sense. I mean, I've seen realtors too undervalue the rents. Like some older agents, I was buying a property and the guy's like, oh, we can probably rent this for like 1,800 and in my head I'm like, I can get like $2,000, 2,300 for it. And he thinks. So then I was using that like to negotiate.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I mean, if I'm only gonna get 1,800,
yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. And then in my head I'm like, I know I can do, so. Goes back to what you were saying, the management. Like I have to manage that. I'm in control of that.
Yep.
I gotta get a little bit more rent for it to make sense. Then, if it's possible, I always try to underwrite my deals like really conservatively. Like if I were to get less, but I mean, usually I know I can probably get at least what the market's at.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, investors or whatever, like they don't realize that they're gonna have to put time into that, and then. It becomes okay finding the right partner. Like you gotta find, if you don't want to do that but you want to invest and get super wealthy off of real estate, like you have to find the right partner in that aspect who's going to go in or who at least can see that.
Yeah.
Like for example, like we're both realtors, we know how to do that. Like a lot of realtors don't because they don't invest or they haven't been operationally increasing.
Yeah.
They haven't been in the operations of the real estate.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, at worst case, use a realtor that understands that so they can at least point you in that direction. Like, not everybody's going to look at a shed and say, okay, let's turn that into an efficiency. We're going to pull in $1,500 a month right there.
Yeah.
Like, that takes, like, a special eye or a trained eye.
I think it just takes someone that's done it.
Exactly.
Because I've done it, and when I first got started, I'm like, damn, this is pretty crazy. Is somebody going to even...
Who's going to live in a
Who's
shed?
going to live in a shed?
Who's going to throw, like, a box or a wall AC in there?
And they do. I'm like, so it's like, if they and like, I'll put it on Facebook Marketplace and get blown up. Like, there's a huge market for that. So it's like, I got to build more.
Some people, I think they're too good for that, too. Some people are like, oh, I don't want to have to buy a property and it doesn't cash flow, and then I have to go change the shed.
Yeah, that too.
It's like, no, you're not better than that. Like, how committed are you to becoming financially free and wealthy off of real estate?
I agree. 100%.
Big difference.
I couldn't
Big
have said it
difference.
better. Yeah, like, it's not gonna fall in your lap. You gotta really grind and make the deals happen and understand that this is just growing. Like, yeah, maybe that's not the market you want to be. Have like a bunch of efficiencies. But I mean,
it'll take you to the next market.
It'll take you to the next market.
It takes you to the next market.
Like, even now, I didn't see myself owning a fourplex. Like,
here you are.
Like 8 years ago when I started. You know, so it grows. It definitely grows. You just gotta stay committed and just keep buying whatever makes sense.
Can we dive a little bit into like what it's like being a realtor in Miami? Like, what are the day-to-day struggles? How are you getting your leads? Like, how are you making this business work for you?
So I get my leads very simple, like kind of old school, not really super high tech. Just referrals. I get some Instagram leads. I also feel like I get business because I post on Instagram what I'm doing, and people can relate. People can relate to it because I kind of tell my story too. But a lot of people are working the 9 to 5 and they want to get out of that. And I feel like the easiest way to get out of that is to find rental properties that can supplement your income. You know, and you can even keep working. You know, some people just buy 1 or 2 properties, and they keep their job. But that the 1 or 2 properties takes the edge off of,
takes the stress out of life.
Yeah, you
can live, you can breathe,
you can like take a day off if you want to and not be like, oh my god, I need the hours or this,
Yeah.
So just a couple properties will. But going back to realtors, I mean, just in Miami, I feel like nobody picks up their phone. Like that's an easy way to differentiate yourself as a good realtor is just pick up the phone. I mean, I feel like when you get calls, I'm sure you answer.
Yeah.
You can't be putting a bunch of door hangers and then not pick up your phone. Like, what was the point of that?
Agreed.
So,
dude, I'm calling yesterday. So I'm cold calling yesterday. This particular neighborhood. I called back to back realtors living next to each other on Andalusia Avenue, which is like 2 up there. Back to back realtors, bro. I'm like, all right. So this leads into the competition. That's where I'm going.
Out of 10, how many picked up?
All 3 picked up. Actually, it was pretty crazy.
Oh,
it was great.
Okay.
So they all picked up, but like basically where I'm going, and then the 4th was a developer. He develops in Coral Gables.
That's rare.
A couple of
they picked up.
So I'm like, all right, that's crazy. But for me, it's like it's such a competitive market, and I think you get this between New York and LA and just all the big like hot city markets, because I think a lot of people, when they don't know what they want to do or they have a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit, they come into real estate because it's the easiest way to like freedom and replace your 9 to 5, for example. So I think that the competition is super high. It's up there. I mean, so you have to kind of like figure out your way to stand out and be your own individual, and I think the best way to do that is like being yourself. So it brings an interesting aspect, but yeah, it's super competitive.
Yeah, like Instagram was like that. Like I see other realtors posting, and I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna start doing posts like this, like sold and just listed and under contract, and I was like getting no traction. I'm like, people don't want to see that. That's why I just reverted back to like my Instagram, which is like my audience.
Yep.
I like cars. I travel. I do real estate.
Yep.
It's like that's me.
Yep.
So people want to work with you. They want to work
because they align with those values.
Yeah, that it's more relatable.
Yep.
When you're just like posting, it's like AI, like a bot, like just listed, just sold, just under contract.
Yeah.
I feel like nobody wants to see that. Nobody cares.
I think a lot of people care about the process to that too. So like when you go and you're like, I remember watching your Instagrams and you're fixing up the duplex you just bought, or you're moving rock with a truck, and like just kind of in the nitty gritty like that. I think people like connect with that and see that process, and then they look at you and they're like, oh, he's done it. I'm gonna use him because I want to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's really. I feel like some people don't get like Instagram leads. I feel like it works for me because I'm posting what I'm doing. Yeah. Like you could do this too. This is not.
And it's cool because you don't have to create that because you're living it. So like it's not like you're going out of your way. Like for some of the green screen videos that I make, for example, like it's frustrating because I have to sit there. I have to study the post. I have to figure out how I'm going to present the hook, how I'm going to do this, that, and it's been doing great. But at the same time, it's like you have to get creative in that way.
Yeah,
it's a different type of content than like just going to content like that you're living in, like you're in the operation.
It's like a vlog, basically.
Yeah,
like there's been days that I'm like, I've been like crazy good days, tons of like busy doing stuff, and I'm like, I didn't hit record once today.
Yeah, you just forget.
And I'm like, this is such a good day, like I could have. So like that's really what my struggle is now. It's just remembering to just post. Like I'll be in the middle of something, like this is a good post, but I gotta, that's the going out of my way part. It's just recording it. That's all it is.
To me, it's crazy how competitive, like real estate. But essentially, if you're not on social media, you're almost like done.
Yeah.
Like unless you're in the generations above us, like way up there. But now, if you're a realtor and you don't have a social media presence, you're kind of done. Like, you're kind of out of the loop. People aren't gonna like trust you that much. But when you go to somebody's page and they have 3 years of being in the operations like you have, or like I have like 1,200 posts or whatever, that's the credibility that you're looking for. Like, okay, he's been doing real estate for 10 years. He hasn't switched up. He's full time. He's not doing this on the side. Like, it's your online business card.
That's another thing you just touched on, is doing it as a side business. I don't think it'll work.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll work. I see a lot of realtors that they're like, oh, I'm going to just do this, but I'm still working. I think it's tough. I mean, if somebody wants to see a house and you're working, I mean, what are you gonna do? You know?
Yeah, I can't.
You gotta be on top of it, especially in Miami. Like there's houses like, especially in this area, you know, like if there's a good deal that pops up on the market,
Boom. Cash.
you gotta be there the day they put it on. You know, like you can't like tomorrow. Oh, forget it.
Yeah.
Like, and I've actually like I have clients that they're like, oh, I'm busy today. Let's set it up for like tomorrow or the day after. And I'm like, no, like we might miss it.
Yeah, you gotta go.
And he's like, oh, well, I can't make it. Okay. So then the next day it's like, oh, is it under contract? I'm like, yeah, it's gone. That's it. Like stuff doesn't last. Like, if it's a good deal. Some houses right now, which the market is kind of shifting. In my opinion, I think the market is shifting. But some houses are sitting, but it's because they're overpriced. But like if it's a good deal, numbers make sense,
it's gone.
They're gone. Yeah, they're not lasting.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking for that one good deal.
Can you go into a couple areas in Miami that would be good for investment? Let's go first-time investors, but also like just I guess any investor.
I feel like first-time investors just stick to where you live. Stick to an area close to where you live. I like to be close to the property, so I try to stay within like 30 minutes to an hour tops. I mean, they're all pretty much like 30 minutes. It just depends on the time of the day. But they're all pretty close by. It makes it easier to manage. But if you're somewhere else, you got to just study your market. Follow the money.
Let's say somebody's in Brickell, but they don't want to buy a condo. Where should they invest, do you think?
Multifamily. Close to Brickell, I would say Alapata.
That's what I say too.
Alapata, Brownsville.
Brownsville.
I mean, Brownsville is like a little market there, but it's close to Hialeah, but it doesn't have Hialeah pricing, which I think is a nice little aspect of Brownsville. There's some new construction in Brownsville. There's like brand new duplexes being built. And Alapata as well, Liberty City. I have like my first property I bought was in Miami Gardens, but that was close to my house.
Sure.
I was still new to real estate. Like I knew Miami because I grew up in Miami, but I didn't know like little pockets.
Yeah, and not like you know now.
Like, yeah. Like, so I was just buying because Miami Gardens was what I could afford,
sure.
and there is still growth. I mean, they have the stadium over there. They're doing a lot more like projects there. Like Doral City Place. It's like they just have like restaurants and like kind of like a nightlife with like little shops.
Oh no, I know exactly.
Yeah. They're gonna do one now supposedly in Miami Gardens, so that'll help. The area have like its own little city place with restaurants and like people can gather and stuff. So that I feel like that'll help the market. But I mean, when I bought, I wasn't looking at any of that. I was just like, it's close to me, And I feel like it's hard to miss in Miami. Like you can buy anywhere, I think, in Miami, and like if you get it at a good price, like you're gonna see appreciation.
Yeah.
Like that's not gonna go with every other area. I mean, I'm just really bullish on Miami, but yeah, like other areas are starting to soften a little bit.
I think it's super interesting trying to explain to somebody that hasn't already purchased real estate how much money you can actually make off of real estate. Like we know because we've done it, but like a lot of people that I talk to, for example, haven't purchased. They're living in Brickell right now, and they're like, hey, Alec, where should I invest? And I say Alapata or something like that. Because they can't afford Coral Gables, for example, or Shenandoah is overpriced now for a lot of people. Like they can't get into the markets they want to get in. So I'm like, okay, invest here. But they look at it like, one, I wouldn't feel comfortable going there. Two, I don't want to deal with those types of tenants and all of those things. So then I shake it down like, okay, either find a partner that's going to manage it or hire a management company. Super easy. And like they don't trust, or they think they're above investing in that particular property. But you and I look at that and you're like, you're missing out on literally hundreds of thousands of dollars.
If the numbers make sense, I'll buy it.
Buy it.
And then like the tenants, you have control of them. You rent to good quality tenants.
Screen your tenants.
Yeah, screen your
Save
tenants.
Yourself
good.
Headaches.
Yeah,
you can hire an eviction service for like $500, which is not a big deal.
Which is what's good about Florida too.
It's not a big deal.
It's
landlord friendly.
Really landlord friendly. Yeah, and I've never had to do an eviction.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I've gotten close a couple times.
Yeah.
But
do they just move out instead of you going through the process?
I really try and like negotiate with them. Like, I'm like, you don't want to have an eviction on your record.
That'll break them.
You won't be able to rent anywhere else.
Yeah.
And renting is already hard in Miami.
Yeah.
So you gotta just, I mean, one thing that's really gone really far for me is just like the tenants that I have. I'm not better than them. Like,
treat them like humans.
Yeah, they're humans. They're humans. They have struggles just like anybody else. Cause I see a lot of landlords that they're like, oh, like that's my tenant. Like I'm better than them. Like, no, like. I'm like, without your tenant, you don't have an investment.
It's a partnership.
You know, it's definitely a partnership. Yeah, you got to manage it well. You know, so that's what's really gone far with me is just being cool with the tenants. You know, and showing that you care. Because I feel like when you show that you care about the property, they'll go out of the way and take care of the property too.
Yeah, they'll mimic that energy.
Yeah, if you're a landlord that just doesn't care about it, then the tenants aren't going to care about it either. Like, when my tenants see me in the front yard picking up like little bottles and like little trash and like just in the yard, they're like, wow, like this guy cares about, you know what I mean? Like they'll be like, damn, let me not. Maybe they're the ones throwing it, but I'm picking it up, and then they're like, damn, let me not throw this bottle or this paper bag or whatever, you know, like. So things like that, I feel like, you know, tenants see that you care. It kind of went up. What it was the areas, yeah. What areas?
Alapata.
Another really good pocket is Little Haiti. Yeah, I feel like it's coming north from Wynwood Design District, Little Haiti, and then also going west, which is Alapata, Model City, Buena Vista area. But like Buena Vista is already hard to buy. It's the numbers don't make sense. You know, like you can only get so much for rents.
So this is what I wanted to touch on. I know. So I was looking at a 9-unit building for like $2-ish million or something like that in Little Havana prior to purchasing this, and
Little Havana's a good market too.
The debt service coverage ratio has to be 1.2 minimum for a commercial loan to be given on a property, in the conventional aspect, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking at that property. I'm running numbers. Minimum 35% down to meet a 1.25 debt service coverage ratio.
Wow.
So like, I think that's happening a lot in Miami right now, and that's the type of money that has to be brought to purchase some of these bigger deals.
Or negotiate it.
Negotiate it.
Negotiate the hell out of it, yeah.
Because like, that's where real estate was the best kept secret until, I mean, social media really started to hit it, and like now everybody's buying. You got all the trust, like the tax benefits. It's just so beneficial. It's insane. So I personally feel like it's been blown out of the water. Now it's the best thing and everybody knows about it. So when people come to me and they expect a FHA or 5% down payment to cash flow, I'm like, yes, you can make it work. Like there's opportunities
it's
like
possible,
the shed.
but I mean, you can't have everything. You gotta pick.
So
one.
few and far between.
You want cash flow? Do you want appreciation? If you want
cash
tax
flow, write-off?
Yeah, if you
like,
want cash
so
flow, then you're gonna have to put more money down.
Yeah.
You know, or get creative, like we talked about.
Or own it, operate it for a couple of years, and then your cash flow is gonna come.
Yeah.
And while you waited, you made $500,000 off of appreciation.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. So when people come to me, I get a little bit frustrated on the, hey, like 5% is gonna cash flow, right? I'm like, yeah, probably not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Then they go, okay, how about 20%? And I'm like, yeah, you might be breaking even unless you can add another property, another like studio or efficiency back there or whatever. So even at that 20%, I find in the markets that I work most of, like Gables, Grove, Brickell, those types of Shenandoah, like that, you're not cash flowing at 20%.
Yeah.
If you go to like the markets that you're talking about, Alapata, Little Haiti, Brownsville.
You can cash flow at 20%.
Not much though, right?
Not much.
Like
not
how much?
much.
Like a couple hundred?
I mean, I always like. I feel like a slam dunk is like a property that makes $1,000 or more.
100%.
But I mean, it's
always
hard.
the goal.
It's hard. Like that's what I try to reach for is that $1,000 mark. But I mean, it's tough. So, sometimes, like I bought, like one of the properties I bought was cash flowing like $600, and then I added a studio to it.
Yep.
Now it makes sense. Now I'm making like $1,800 a month. You know,
hit your
but I needed to do that. But it didn't cash flow at first. You know,
Yeah.
but I feel like somebody will run the numbers
Yeah.
and be like, no, I don't want it.
Yeah.
But like you gotta
go look at the opportunity.
Look at the property.
Yeah.
See what potential it has. See where you can make it work for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely differences in market.
I think that's what you're talking about previously. Earlier, you said like small multifamily is my niche, because once you get to the 9+ units, 10+ units, you're dealing with institutional money and or big,
and it's
like,
a lot more
owners.
management intensive. Like if you're gonna self-manage, like I'm doing, it's gonna be tough to do 9+ units or just by yourself. I mean, you gotta have your team. It's possible. It's still possible.
And you got to bring 35% down.
And you gotta bring.
It's like oh my god. So it's like there's levels to this game, and obviously like a lot of people are trying to climb, and like they own a couple properties now, and they're getting into their 4 units like you, and then later on they're trying to get into like the big multifamily, 10, 15, 20 units. Like each level has its pros, its cons. It's you have to do this, you have to do that. Like, so start small and work your way up the ladder if that's like what you want to go with.
Yeah, and negotiating. I mean, some people are like, oh, but that property's overpriced. I'm like, so let's see where it makes sense for you, and let's try and negotiate it.
Yeah.
So I feel like another thing that realtors don't like to do, which I dealt with when I was buying my first property, is like I wanted to do a low ball offer, and it wasn't even that low. Like,
yeah.
But like they were like, oh, but you should do full price, and I'm like, if the market's competitive, then maybe you have to. Maybe you have to go above. I've seen that too. But sometimes the property's just not valued well, or it needs tons of work, tons of renovation. It's not getting the activity that I know like other houses would get, like tons of offers. I'm like, this is not one of those, so I'm gonna hit them with low ball. Not all the time, but some realtors don't want to write low ball offers. So I was like, now I can offer whatever I want. But it's easy to. I feel like it's easy to negotiate when you sit down with. I mean, hopefully the other agent is even communicating with the seller. But you talk to the other agent, like, look, this is what the rents are. This is what I can collect. Let's say you bump it up, it still doesn't make sense. Like, just break it down to them. They'll be like, it's overpriced. Like, nobody's gonna buy it. Like, investors look at the numbers. If the numbers don't make sense, it'll sit there. You know. So sometimes it's not even like, oh, how do I negotiate? Like, it's simple. Just tell them flat out. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. You know, like
1,000%.
You know, and then maybe you can bring down that purchase price and then bring less money to the table. The debt coverage would work.
A lot of what I'm seeing in Miami right now is geared towards development. So a lot of people will have this property and they'll have it listed at a very high number based on the current rents and stuff, but they're selling it to a developer that's going to come in, knock it down, develop, and exit, or hold it, whatever.
I've seen that too.
Because Miami is so old, like I feel like a lot of the properties here are so old.
Yeah.
Like, so you're not only gonna not cash flow because you're just purchasing it at whatever the case may be, but you're also competing with developers, and that's why a lot of these properties are priced the way they are.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting, like, that's an additional level to this game, and to like bidding for a property that you want to purchase is like
it's the land value,
and what it could be,
yeah.
Not what it is.
Yeah,
what it could be.
That's the problem with like Little Havana.
Bro, everything has going west out of
There's properties that's like 1920s, 1930s, and they've been multifamily their whole life. Like it's pretty beat up, you know. So it's like if you're gonna sell it for land value, I mean, it's like there's a structure there, you know. So it's like you want to work with what the structure is, and if somebody wants to take over, they want to take over what's there. But a developer, they need to get it at a decent price if they're gonna just buy it and knock it down. Yeah. You know, it needs to make sense as far as developing. So I mean, some realtors don't understand that.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta price it for a developer or price it for someone that's gonna take over.
Yeah.
You know?
Almost two separate prices.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then everybody wants to market the highest dollar, which is probably the developer route. So then they market it way overpriced, and then it sits. So it's like, it's always that balance game of like, I guess figuring out what the seller wants to do, how pressed they are for.
Yeah, you gotta know when you're selling, you gotta know who's your buyer.
Yeah.
Who's the one buying it? You know, like if you're selling just a regular single family, who's gonna look at it? Then that's how you market it to those people. Yeah. You know, sometimes you're marketing to a developer, and developers don't want that.
Yeah, that's true.
I've seen too on the MLS. You see people they're like, oh, you can build like 18 units on this, and then I go to the zoning and I'm like, it says you can only build 9. Like, where do they get that from? You know, like, so they might even be off.
Yeah, they don't even know their zoning.
So they think it's worth more, And then developers are like, I can only build 9. It's not worth like the 18 that you're saying. So, I mean, unless they're plugged in, with politics, but that's a whole other mission. It's a whole other mission.
That's right. I hear that you're the firework guy. You set off a ton of fireworks. Can you dive into that a little bit?
I got the video on my Instagram, but if you live in the Miami Lakes area on 4th of July or New Year's, you're probably watching my fireworks show. You could be at your house, and if you're in that area, you'll see it. And that's another thing that I got that from my dad. He loved fireworks, and now he's like, you're spending way too much on fireworks. Like, I'm like, you got me. You started this. Yeah. Because he used to buy a lot of fireworks, and I kind of just went crazy.
Above and beyond.
Yeah, I went above and beyond. So, 4th of July, New Year's, I always put a fireworks show on, and I think it's better than Disney. Better than Disney fireworks show. It's pretty crazy.
Okay.
This 4th of July just passed. I spent $5,000 on fireworks.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
5,000 on fireworks.
And I have the show on my Instagram.
What's your Instagram?
Waftho. WAFFTHO.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and my mom was recording the fireworks show. So
nice.
She's like recording the show, but also recording me running around and lighting everything. So it's a pretty good perspective.
So you put it on yourself, or do you have other people helping?
No, I put it on myself.
Take a torch and you line them up.
I use like the cops have like the traffic flares, like when there's an accident, like those pink flares.
Yeah.
I use that because it doesn't go out, and just I set them up. My friends will help me set it up. I don't want to take all the credit.
Yeah.
My friends will help me because they're heavy. Some of these fireworks are heavy, so they'll help me set it up, and I'll just line them up and kind of put like the big ones on the side. Like there's like a method to my madness, and then just get the flare and just start lighting.
All right, Chris, how much do you pay per month in car insurance?
My car insurance is probably like a mortgage.
A mortgage?
Yeah.
How many cars do you have currently?
7 cars.
7 cars. I know you got a Porsche out in the driveway.
I got the Porsche outside. I got an old Cadillac, an 83 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. You would hate that car. It's so non-efficient. It gets like, it actually has like a mile per gallon reader for a 1983. That's pretty like high tech. Okay. And it'll read like 5 or 6 miles per gallon.
That's
crazy. Yeah, no lie. I have a Nissan 240SX. I just got a Pontiac GT, which is it's like a Corvette engine, basically in a 4-door Pontiac. Okay. I got 2 4Runners, and then I have a yellow Mustang.
Wait, why do you have 2 4Runners?
So I have one that's like more business use, and the other, they're both for business. One of them is like the work truck. It's like kind of all beat up. That's like the one I do like, load concrete bags and like stuff like that. So that's the old one, and the new one is like I can go to showings and like, it's presentable. It's not like a beat up old. Yeah. So and then 4Runners, they last forever. They don't die. Okay. To me, like the best, like you go with the Toyota, it's never gonna break. Sure. Yeah.
So you have those. Anything else you have?
I got the Mustang. It's a 98 Mustang, yellow. I think is that 7? Maybe
you got a green bike too.
Oh yeah, I got the green lowrider bike.
I'm talking like a pedal bike, right? It's a pedal bike?
I have a pedal bike. I have a scooter. I have an old scooter, like a vintage Honda scooter. Okay. That's pretty fun. Nice. That would do good over here because you can go to Brickell quick.
There you go.
Little scooter, yeah. Yeah, the scooter's fun to drive.
Okay, and where do you keep all these vehicles?
Everywhere. I have some in my house, some in my mom's house. I need to get like a warehouse space. That's in the plans next.
And that'll be your office and all that stuff too.
Yeah,
like a one-stop
like
shop.
An office, like space for my toys. Yeah. And just have like a little man cave.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That'd be super cool. So you got that, and then I'm over here on the other end, like don't ever buy a car, have a Tesla, think it's the worst investment ever. Dude, I spent like 20 grand on my Tesla because I bought it when I moved down here, and it was at peak market. And then now, Elon's dropped the price so much.
I feel like that's one thing with electric cars. I feel like they don't hold their value as well.
It's such a new market.
It's a new market, and Tesla owners will probably hate me, But I feel like it's like an iPhone. Like after 2 years, it's like
It's
the
old
new
news.
one. The new one, yeah, the new one's out.
Sure.
Your battery's dying quick. You're like, let me just upgrade. Like I feel like that's like electric vehicles right now. They're just kind of like disposable.
Sure,
Like,
sure.
like, they have a short lifespan.
It's crazy to me that how, I guess, inexpensive the electric cars are to produce and manufacture because of the parts and all that stuff. Like, yeah, you have the batteries, and like they mine that and the environment and all those things about that, but like these cars are so cheap, but they charge so much. I feel like there's a big deflation thing kind of going on.
I think even Elon Musk reduced the prices of his own cars.
He reduced them like crazy.
And people were mad because it's like you just bought at a higher price.
That's
he
me.
Dropped
That's me.
He just dropped it. Yeah.
So it's so crazy. And then like what I've been seeing lately is a lot of like I got my tires changed in my driveway, for example, like a couple months back. It's cheaper for Goodyear, the company that changed my tires, to have a van and manage that van and that fleet than it would be for them to manage multiple different locations in real estate, in my opinion. So I think what's happening is they charge more for that service currently because of the convenience factor, but they profit more because the overhead would be less because they don't have a store with consistent overhead every month.
You
they
gotta
have a
just
van.
manage the vehicles.
Yeah, so a van is less overhead than real estate. So it's kind of an interesting thing that they still charge more. So I think as the market kind of shifts into this service at your house and like the electric cars with no oil changes, no brake pads, no headlights, none of that stuff. Yes, inflation is happening on this side, but there's also a lot of deflationary events that are happening that haven't kicked in yet, and it's going to be, I think, super interesting to kind of watch that all shake out.
I think the future is not electric cars.
For real?
I don't think so.
What do you think it is?
I'm just a big car enthusiast, but I feel like how all the manufacturers are just going to electric, like Ford, Chevy, they're all like trying to build like, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with electric vehicles. If you like it, go for it, get what you like. But I feel like Tesla's gonna be the #1 electric vehicle brand, and all the other ones are like trying to compete for that, and I'm like, they're gonna all fail.
Yeah.
Like Dodge stopped making the Dodge Charger, which was like a V8 gas guzzler, to go electric, and the market's shown that nobody wants it. So I'm like, not every car company can be a Tesla.
Yeah,
just let Tesla do their thing, and everybody else just stick to like what they know.
It's interesting. I watched Elon Musk talk, I think it was 2 days ago, about Tesla and how like when you buy a Tesla, like it's sitting in my driveway right now. If I leave for 2 weeks, I can just click a button and it'll add it to the fleet, and it'll go do autonomous driving and basically like replace Uber or Lyft.
That's cool.
So you can click that, it goes on, you make money, it's a rev share. So Tesla will take 20%, you keep 80, and that'll kind of offset the cost of buying a car, but it's also going to take away Lyft and Uber. So for him to have that platform with all the cars he has out there, like that's insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
To even say for me, I would buy a Tesla.
See,
if I can. It's like another rental property.
That's what I'm saying.
Work.
So it's like he's doing all of this stuff to almost to the point where, like, you can't compete with that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this man's trying to do free internet for the whole world.
I think the future, if you want like really fuel efficient vehicles, is going to be hybrid. Gas and battery, but fully electric. I don't think it's going to take off like people think it is. Like I think Tesla's just going to be the leader of that market, and all these other companies are wasting their time.
I will say a lot of people in Gables don't like gas cars because they have to go to the gas station. So a lot of these people are elderly, right? And they know that nothing good happens at gas stations. So they order their gas and or have had the electric route, which our demographic might be a little bit different because we're young. We can go do that, no big deal. But they're like, okay, I don't feel safe at a gas station. It's difficult for me to walk and get there, and like I don't know how to use the credit card reader. I'm going inside, all this stuff. So I think that's another interesting aspect to it as well. But
I didn't think of that.